Well, I ruined it. Actually, not really. So, I needed more fender clearance up in here to try to get more compression travel out of the car. And before, it was only coming up about 1.5 inches, 2 inches. It was starting to rub on the inner fender as it curved in to the body. So I needed to move that up. I had to make cuts in there and push it all up in order to, and then re-weld it to get it to support this fender and keep it pushed out. I really didn't want to do that because it screws up the paint, but I didn't have much of an option, and honestly, it's not like there's a whole lot of, I mean, look at this chunk, whole chunk's missing. The whole chunk was nothing but Bondo. It's not like I'm ruining anything at this point, so whatever, we're here. This tire now clears up to 4 inches of compression travel and will still spin. It gets just a little bit rub back here at that point, so I'll probably still end up getting a fender roller and try to push this area out a little bit more also, just to make sure I have that full 4 inches of compression travel. I actually don't think I'll get that much with where the coil and the bump stop should keep the movement from going. 4 inches is also when the axle tube hits the frame, so we want to stay away from that. But yeah, I'm not a body guy, but we'll go through how I made tire clearance. So here's the problem, is the tire starts to rub right about there. And this is only at maybe 1 inch worth of compression from the ride height I want to run. So I really need to be having enough room for this rim to actually tuck up into the body a little bit. And it's not just that it's touching the lip here. The inner fender, which goes up about this high, curves pretty much almost immediately going up in there. So I actually have to come along, cut this lip on the inside all the way across so I can cut that inner fender loose and then cut some sections out of it and bend the stuff up out of the way. And then reattach it to the fender so it actually holds it. Otherwise, anybody just walking by, if they leaned on it, would move it in and then cut the tire. So I trimmed the lip across the top of the arch, and then I put these slot cuts in it. I had to cut the extra inner lip because they're like sandwiched together from the factory. I mean, you can see both layers here. had to get that cut out. So now that I got these slits in these, I'll be able to put the tire back on. And after trying a few different ways, the easiest way was just take a chunk of steel, put it on top of the tire, and then jack the tire up in there and crush the body up. Because then as it like pushes on here, it'll fold this edge and it'll help push the fender out while pushing this up out of the way. Because you can see the rub marks from where the tire was hitting here, and I mean, you really can't do anything about that unless I push it up higher. So that's what I'm doing. I want to crush those inner slotted sections up higher, because right now they're right here and I want to get them up here somewhere. I tried a whole bunch of different stuff on the other side, and then it just came down to I'm just going to take a solid chunk of metal, stick it in here on top of the tire, kind of set it in place somewhere, and I'm just going to let the jack down and let it compress without the coil over hooked up to just crush that up in there, because swinging hammers at it wasn't working. I was stacking up a bunch of magazines, because that's kind of a trick for rolling fenders out, but it did some, but it was never enough, and then I just had to go to this route anyway. So, but we might want to start with magazines, but I don't know. We'll just get this pushed over. As you can see, I just crushed that in up a little bit. As it did, it pushed the lip out. And I'm just going to kind of repeat this a whole bunch until I end up with something I can work with. This is my other method, bunch of rolled up magazines. It'll help push the flanges that are kind of flopping around and up, and we'll see what we end up with. Well, we're making progress. Because that magazine's probably 2.5, 3 inches thick, rolled up in there. So if I can get everything bent up into that place, I'll have that much more clearance than even where it's at now. You know, other than it will get into the lip here a little bit before that, but I want to make sure I have more than enough. Look at that, that's the frame on the axle. I got a little bit of a rub here yet, but this is farther than I expect it'll go. So if I can get a little more fender pull out here by pushing those up some more, then this should be a usable spot. I can grind away a little bit of that fender lip there yet. Should probably cut the flanges up here out of the way. Be a good place to start. Or continue. Better back that up. So this is basically what I've ended up with. As you can see, I got all them sections pushed up higher to give myself more wheel well clearance. It's kind of hard to tell, but basically it's now level across the top through this section versus before they were coming down all the way to here. So we're making more wheel clearance. I'm gonna put just kind of a patch panel sort of a thing over this, something that I can put some seam sealer on the front side, back side, or whatever. Just try to keep a bunch of dirt and water or whatever from spraying up into the trunk. It's not worth getting after too much considering the state of the rest of the body back here, and there's plenty of sections where it's tore wide open anyway. So that's what I'll do. Actually, I'll jump over to the other side and show you what I did there. Here's the patch panel I put on the other side. It's just a piece of aluminum I had, and then just a flat section, and then I put a bunch of cross cuts in it so I could bend the tabs down, and then bent the profile, cut off the extra, then welded it back together and just ground it down. So it covers up the holes. And then I'll be able to just put some seam sealer around the outside just to kind of glue it all together. Probably roll this fender edge out just a little bit more and all the way up to that just to get that aluminum bent out a little bit to hold it out away from the wheel just a little bit more. But other than that, that's what I'm doing to make the wheel fit. Alright, this is the other cover made. I'm just going to end up riveting it in there. And then because it's aluminum and nice and soft, I can kind of hammer it around and get it to fit nice and tight. And then if the tire comes into contact with any of this, it should be a smooth surface where it's not going to catch on an edge and chunk out or anything bad like that. So that's all it is. You can see where I had cuts and made welds. If I had sheet metal tools, I had a shrinker stretcher that might have been able to do that without having to do all these welds, but I don't, so this is the solution. And with welding, all those pieces back in to give the fender some strength. Obviously it's messed up the paint, which I really don't care because the paint is not that nice on this car. But this side came out much better than the other side after welding it in there and then grinding it down some and then being able to just pound it out with the body hammer and dolly a little bit. And then it was just a little bit of grinding on top, kind of take the high spots off. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's not bad either. I could definitely put a little bit of mud on that and sand it down and have it come out nice and level. So, but maybe we'll just figure out something with vinyl for doing a livery, and then I can just cover it up, and then I don't have to do nothing with it at all. So we'll see what happens with that. But all I care about is that the tire's clear, and then try to worry about trying to make it look good later.